Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, January 31st, 2022. I am Dave Biddle. I'm very happy to be joined by Steve Helwagen. A lot to get into, but Steve, let's start with the Cincinnati Bengals making the Super Bowl. And there is a strong Ohio State angle here for the listeners out there that don't really care about the Bengals. 4 starters for the Cincinnati Bengals are former Buckeyes, and that doesn't even include Joe Burrow. 5, including Joe Burrow, who was on the team for 3 years at Ohio State, has a degree from Ohio State. For those that are wondering, well, does he really count? Well, Joe Burrow himself has been asked, you claim LSU or Ohio State? And Joe Burrow says both. Anyway, Steve, you know me, man. I'm a Bengals fan. I appreciate you playing along here. You're a Browns fan, but I feel like you were pulling for the Bengals yesterday. Your thoughts on the Bengals making the Super Bowl and all these Buckeyes they have playing for them?
Well, definitely, Dave. And I will say, yes, I'm Browns all the way, even to the point, the Browns have never been to the Super Bowl, one of 4 or 5 franchises in the NFL that have never made it. But one day, maybe before I pass, it'll happen. But at any rate, a lot of friends and family are Bengals fans, so I was happy for them. And obviously, about 40%, 50% of our fan base, however you want to figure it, I'm sure from Ohio State are Cincinnati fans as well for the Bengals. And so congrats to all those people. And it's coincidental. It's not, for me, but the Super Bowl actually falls on my birthday, February the 13th. So we may have to have a party for both instances on that day. But at any rate, very happy. And obviously the Ohio State fingerprints were all over this. You talk about Von Bell caught the tip pass interception in the overtime, and that gave you the defensive stop that you had to have. And now you're 25, 30 yards away from a field goal is all you need as the team getting the ball second to win the AFC Championship and go to the Super Bowl. So it was, and with that kicker that they have, who's good from basically 55 and in, if not 58 and in, you had to have a good feeling that if they just got a first down or two, the game was going to be over. So Von Bell, credit for that. At the end of regulation play, it was Sam Hubbard, back-to-back sacks, and even forced a fumble, which would have ended the game. Had the Bengals fallen on that fumble, would have ended the game right there with the Bengals winning by 3. But instead, the Chiefs kicked the field goal to send it to overtime. And they talked to Hubbard after the game. We're listening on WLW radio, and he said he could never remember having back-to-back sacks on 2 consecutive plays, let alone to send your team to the Super Bowl. So that was pretty remarkable for him, and he's worth every dime of that contract extension they gave him a year or 2 ago. So congrats to him. He also was asked about Joe Burrow. Said that he hosted Joe Burrow, around the time they drafted him, maybe before they drafted him or right after, and how he was so impressed with Burrow and basically let him know that you're the missing piece to this whole puzzle. And here they are less than 2 years later going to the Super Bowl. So remarkable in every way, shape, or form. Eli Apple, Eli Apple is the ultimate high wire act. He's kind of like our friend Terry Gilliam used to say about Daquan Cook. He's going to splash a 3, and then he's going to have a travel, and then a ball's going to go up against the backboard, and then he's going to throw it out of bounds, and then he's going to have a dunk. It's one play is spectacular. The next play is a 30-yard pass interference penalty to set up a touchdown. But, that's just kind of the way it is. And he makes more positive plays, obviously, for the Bengals than he does negative. And he's probably having his best year as a pro and going to play in the Super Bowl. So that's good for him. I'm happy for him. Isaiah Prince, obviously, the offensive line for the Bengals is what it is. I think they'll have 3 or 4 new starters on that line next year. Probably a first-round draft pick and a second-round draft pick will probably start on the offensive line for the Bengals next year. But Isaiah Prince is going to start in the Super Bowl at right tackle. And he had a couple penalties, I think a hold and a false start. But otherwise, they did just enough to keep Joe Burrow clean enough for them to win the game, and congrats to him as well. So, what do you say? Jordan Fuller will be on the other side for the Rams, although he was on injured reserve, didn't play in the NFC Championship game. And I'm here for it. First time ever, Bengals and Rams will play in the Super Bowl. The Bengals have played the 49ers twice previously, but Nick Bosa and the Niners could not get it done last night. And so there you go. Bengals and Rams at the Rams home field, SoFi Stadium. Just a coincidence, second year in a row, the team will host the Super Bowl, but I'm sure the Bengals will have plenty of support out there.
Yeah, it feels very good even the next day. It's surreal. It is absolutely surreal that the Bengals are in the Super Bowl, especially with all these Buckeyes on their roster. All right, let's move along. This is a huge day for Ohio State football. We have been waiting to interview the new assistant coaches. Today is that day. We will also get head coach Ryan Day. This is the first media availability since the Rose Bowl and the first time the local media will be interviewing the new assistant coaches. So we're going to get Coach Ryan Day around 2:30 today, 2:30 Eastern. And then we're expected to get new defensive coordinator Jim Knowles, new offensive line coach Justin Frye, new corners coach Tim Walton, former Buckeye Tim Walton, and new safeties coach Perry Eliano. Steve, I love this. Again, Bucknutters, right around 2:30 for Ryan Day. Then we're going to get the assistant coaches sometime between 3 and 4. I can't wait. I'm looking, most forward to talking to Jim Knowles, but I'm looking forward to talking to all these gentlemen.
Yeah, no question, Dave. We're going to be all over it. We'll post the day video as soon as it's done. And, he's got a lot of questions, I think, that he'll need to answer or will be asked. Why did you decide to make, wholesale changes on your coaching staff at this point? And I'm sure he'll share some of his rationale. And as I wrote a column about 3 weeks ago, and this was all unfolding, it's like he's pushed all of his chips to the middle of the table and said, if we're going to win the national championship with C.J. Stroud, we need to do it this year because he's leaving for the NFL after this upcoming season. And so he wasn't going to stand pat with what he had and felt that there could be some upgrades with scheme and development and everything else at all these different positions. I mean, the secondary, linebackers, and the offensive line, all new position coaches for those 4 areas, if you say the safeties and corners are separate. So I'm interested as well to talk to all these people. You hear so much about what kind of a football savant Jim Knowles is. I don't need him to stand up there at the grease board and draw up the Tampa 2 defense or anything. But at the same time, I think you're interested in basically putting it to him, hey, this thing's been a dysfunctional mess for 2 years. Have you looked at any of the video? Are there any pieces here worth redeeming? And is the defense going to be better in 2022? And if so, does that give your team a chance to win the national championship this coming year? So I think there's a lot going on there today. And Tim Walton, obviously former Buckeye, it's been a long journey through the wilderness for him. He was at Ohio State in the early 90s, and there was always talk, would he ever come back to his alma mater? He coached a lot of colleges and 9 years, I think, in the NFL, and now he's coming back to the college ranks, and I think that's got to be exciting for him. So, yeah, a lot to talk about with those guys. I'm interested. We want to pin down Ryan Day as well on personnel. We did a scholarship study here last week, and if guys like E.A. Nate-Ote and Jerron Cage and a couple others are coming back, they're probably 7 or 8 guys over the scholarship limit, and get his thoughts about that super senior rule that seems to be going by the wayside. They could still have an extra year of eligibility, Dave, but they count against your 85 this year. So I think that's a total bullcrap move. And the NCAA, on one hand, we're here for the student athletes. We're just not here for those ones denied scholarships because we're, doing this. So, yeah, I think he should have some things to say about that today as well. Dave Doran really picked up the torch on that a week or 2 ago. And I think if every head coach at a major college stood up and said something, they'll have to change that rule because I just think that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I want to get your take on this. Jay Book and I talked about this on Friday's show. I find this topic very interesting. In fact, this was the crux of the show on Friday. So there's been they're kicking around the idea. It doesn't sound like it's like imminent by any means, but they're kicking around the idea, the Big Ten is, of eliminating divisions. They're at least talking about it. I don't know if they're leaning one way or the other, or what's the most likely scenario. Nothing's going to change this coming season. The listeners out there that are wondering. Steve, let's say it does happen. Let's say they get rid of East and West and it's one big, 14 team conference. There's no divisions. And then whoever finishes the top two teams in the standings, they play. It could be a rematch, of course it could be a rematch now, even with, because you have the crossover games. Would you be in favor of no divisions, or do you like it the way it is right now?
Well, the West is 0-8, I think, since 2014, 0-8 in the championship game against the East. And they tried legends and leaders before that with what they thought were competitive divisions. And nobody liked that because you couldn't remember who was in which division because it wasn't geographical. And so, geographical, by all means could be, should be how it works. But, it from a football standpoint, it doesn't really work because nobody in the West has been able to break through. I think part of this is drawn on by the SEC. They did not want automatic spots for every one of the Power Five conferences, as well as one group of five, I think, because it takes up too many spots and they don't get their 3 or 4 spots in the playoff if they do that. I think they were going to draw the line at the top 5 conference champions, regardless of, whether you're Power Five or not. And the Big Ten problem with that was, okay, what if a 3-loss Penn State gets in there, as an example, and wins the Big Ten, then, it screws up the playoff. So takes a spot away, so to speak, from a deserving team. So to my way of thinking, that this would eliminate that, because the top 2 teams, you would figure, aren't going to have more than 2 losses, the winner of their game, and would still be a viable playoff contender. So I'm cool with it. I just wonder, what do you do in a situation where it's Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State all 11-1, 8-1, or if they go back to 8 games, 7-1, and they were all each 1-1 against each other? How do you get that down to 2 teams? I'm confused on that one, but other than a coin flip or draw lots or something, I don't know how you. I'm sure the Big 12 has a way that they do it if it came to that. Maybe it's based on the ranking of the teams. I don't know, but how do you do that when the ranking for the teams doesn't come out until the following Monday, or Sunday morning, I guess, with the playoff ranking? I don't know, but at any rate, it solves some problems, but could create others. So I don't know. If I was the commissioner of the sport, we'd have a lot of changes for the good. I'll just say that.
Yes. I think everybody would agree with that. There's very few things we all agree on. I think everybody would agree. And that Kevin Warren is persona non grata. Whoever thought we would be missing Jim Delaney so much so fast. Hey, you were in West Lafayette yesterday. You mentioned how you were listening to the game, the Bengals game on radio. It's because you were in West Lafayette covering Ohio State's game against Purdue. I was joking with you early in the second half. I texted you and the Murph. I'm like, you guys, I don't even think I was joking. Thinking back on, I'm watching the Bengals game. I'm like, you guys should leave right now and beat the traffic. I mean, it looked like Ohio State was going to get blown out. They come all the way back. They tie the game on an E.J. Liddell 3 late in the game. It looks like, wow, they're going to pull this out. And I guess I wasn't watching the Bengals game yet. I was just watching pregame coverage of the Bengals. Bengals wasn't on yet. But my point is, Buckeyes did lose the game. But I'm encouraged by this team, Steve. They're not world beaters or anything, but I don't know. I mean, that Purdue team is really good. For the Buckeyes to come back the way they did, I know, moral victories. We don't want to hear about moral victories. I'm just saying overall, I like where this team is at. And that was a heck of a near comeback yesterday.
Yeah, we saw the best and the worst of Ohio State basketball yesterday. They get behind by 20 points with 14 minutes to go, and it looked like they'd all but given up, and the body language wasn't good. And Coach Holtman called a timeout. There was a TV timeout, and I'm sure he's just pleading with them, urging them to stay with it. And the problem was they weren't hitting from 3-point territory. I think they were 3 for their first 17, something like that on threes, which is not going to get it done. And they couldn't go inside either because you got the 7'4" guy. Zach Edey, 7'4", and he's in there in the paint and, deterring anybody from taking shots in there. They got Travion Williams, who's a big, beefy guy, 6'10" and 255 pounds, who he's improved his agility 100%. And now he's, to my way of thinking, a viable big man, for the next level possibly. So those two guys kind of trade off in the paint, and Ohio State had no way to attack them and had 32 points with 14 minutes to go in the game. They're down 52-32. And little by little, Eugene Brown, Michie Johnson, Cedric Russell, all those guys, kind of played some backup roles, came in and hit some shots. Malachi Branham got it going a little bit, hit a couple big shots. He took it in and hit a reverse, which was just uncanny with about a minute and a half to go to get it down to like 6 or 7. Then they get a stop, and Branham pushes it ahead off the rebound and gets it to Liddell in the left corner. He hits the 3, and Purdue couldn't get the ball inbounded, called timeout. Out of the timeout, they throw the ball away. Sasha Stefanovic throws the ball inbounds, and Kyle Young, the 8-year senior, comes over and steals the pass, gives it to Wheeler. Wheeler gets it to Liddell, hits the 3, and Ohio State is celebrating, they had silenced the crowd of 14,000, and they're like, we are going to win this game. And they were, potentially a stop and going to overtime away from winning the game. And it looked great. They had the stop. They had Eric Hunter bottled up on the right wing, but then it was that guy, Jaden Ivey, their, dynamic guard, came off the screen, and Eugene Brown kind of got hung up a little bit. And Brown got there by the time the shot went up and had a hand up, but it was just, a hand down, man down, just a split second late. And Ivy, who'd struggled down the stretch, Purdue basically folded in the last 5 minutes, and he had to travel and a couple bad shots to kind of pave the way for Ohio State to steal it. And he hits the game winner, and just a great game. If you didn't care who won, I think from Ohio State, they build off this. They come home, they take care of business this week against Iowa and Maryland. They're still right where they want to be. And, the regular season championship is not off the table for this team, despite that loss, Dave, because they only play 2 ranked teams the rest of the way, which is Illinois away and Michigan State at home at the end. And with the Nebraska makeup tentatively set for February 21st, 7 of the last 11 games will be at Value City Arena. So if they just hold serve at home and maybe win a game or 2 on the road, their record's going to be right as good as just about anybody in the conference. So they're hanging in there, and great comeback, just came up a little short.
Yeah, they couldn't pull a Cincinnati Bengals and finish the comeback.
What kind of day would that have been if we had gotten the sweep on the Buckeyes and the Bengals, Dave?
That would have been. I didn't think yesterday could be any better. That would have been even better. That would have been even better. Yeah. Forget about my moral victory nonsense. That would have been far better to actually get the win. But I still like I said, man, I think this team's on the right track. Again, I don't think they're, a top 10 team or anything, but I like where they're headed. I like Malachi Branham becoming a, the player I hoped he would be. He's even better than I thought he would be as a freshman.
7 rebounds.
Yeah, I just I like the direction these guys are headed. EJ Liddell's stepped up his game. I wish they still had Dwayne Washington. That's a funny thing. Everybody was like, Dwayne Washington, he's making a mistake leaving. Well, he's currently making a paycheck in the NBA and playing pretty well. They could use him, but you said it very well. I like where this basketball team's headed, and hopefully they can make a decent run here. The rest of the regular season and then in the postseason. Well, thank you very much to Steve Helwagen. Appreciate your wisdom, Steve. Thank you to all the listeners out there for tuning in the show. Again, wall-to-wall coverage of Ohio State football later today. Ryan Day and the new assistant coaches, so keep it locked to Bucknuts for that. Thanks again to listening to the show. We appreciate that very much. Hope everyone has a great day. Let's hear that Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.